We are what we love. If we love God, in whose image we were created, we discover ourselves in Him and we cannot help but be happy. We have already achieved something of the fullness of being for which we were destined in our creation. If we love everything else but God, we contradict the image in our very essence, and we cannot help but being unhappy because we are living a caricature of what we are meant to be. I would just like to remind us and to reinforce in us the definition of love as it is written in Peterson's The Message from 1 Corinthians 13, selected verses. I am bankrupt without love. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. Love doesn't have a swelled head. Doesn't force itself on others. Isn't always me first. Doesn't fly off the handle. Doesn't keep score of the sins of others. Doesn't revel when others grovel. Takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. Puts up with anything. Trusts God always. Always looks for the best. Never looks back. But it keeps going to the end. Love never dies. If there was something that grabbed your attention in my reading, I want you to write it down because I'm going to read it again, those verses. And the purpose of this is called Lectio Divina. And whatever gets your attention, especially if it ruffles you a little, like sandpaper, God wants to have conversation with you about it, ultimately out of love, to make you more loving. It's a time where we get to continue, even after this time, on until this evening, tomorrow, as long as it takes for us to just have this seed planted within us and bearing the fruit of change in our lives. So listen. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. Love doesn't have a swelled head. Doesn't force itself on others. It isn't always me first. Doesn't fly off the handle. Love doesn't keep score of the sins of others. Love doesn't revel when others grovel. Love takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. Puts up with anything. Trust God always. Always looks for the best. Never looks back, but keeps going to the end. Love never dies. Trust steadily in God, hope unswervingly, love extravagantly, and the best of the three is love. Amen.
Good morning again to some, and to others for the first time, good morning. And welcome, your troopers. We had a group of troopers here Thursday night, and you've come out this morning. I told them Thursday night if I didn't have to be here, I would have been at home in the bed. And I think that would be true of me this morning. I'd probably be just turning over for the first time, thanks to NyQuil. Sister Karen has an appointment this morning, so she is going to go first. The trustees are going to present first.
Good morning, Mount Carmel. I want to publicly thank our Minister of Christian Education, Bishop William P. Henry, for allowing me to present first. I'm sure I will hear about it at another time. But I really appreciate his graciousness. So I'm here to talk about the Trustee Board Ministry. My name is Karen Hayes. I'm the 2014 chairperson, Trustee Board Ministry. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and then we'll just briefly review the packet that's inside your folder, and our treasurer, Sister Yvonne Hayden, will briefly provide you an update as well on the new position of Assistant Treasurer. So, and now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail of what trustees do because Sister Gwen Winfrey may cover some of that when she goes over the Constitution and bylaws. But first, I'd like to ask all trustees who are present to please stand so that you can see who they are. We have Al Divers to my left, Jeffrey Cruz to my left, Jana Davenport to my left, and Oswald Roach to my right. And these trustees may serve with you on other ministries within our church, so get to know them. If you have questions, they surely should be able to help you. We are here, we are known as dealing with money only, but that is not the case. We deal with God's house. God put us here to deal with his house. So yes, Sundays and processing the offering, bulk of what we do, we spend a lot of quality time together. Janice said, yeah, we do. And, but it's rewarding quality time together because we're doing God's work. And I see potential trustees out here as I look amongst the bright eyes this morning. So as you know, every year the nominating committee places something in the bulletin. If you're interested in becoming a trustee, submit your name and you go through an interview process, and then ultimately God selects you, but then Mount Carmel Church selects you to be a trustee at our annual meeting in December. We have 11 subcommittees on the Trustee Board Ministry. They're very important committees as well, starting with the Voucher Committee, which Brother Jeffrey Cruz chairs. You know, they meet twice a month to review requisitions, to review our bills, and to submit those for payment. We have the Investment Committee, which Sister Yvonne Hayden chairs. She's also our church treasurer. and our deacon board ministry, they serve with us on that committee. We have our own sunshine committee. We have a technology committee. It used to be computerization, but Brother Ed Robinson chairs that committee. Sister Kateria McCabe chairs our sunshine committee. We have an insurance committee, be it health insurance, our liability insurance. That is something that we have responsibility for, and Trustee Margot Mango chairs that committee. The House Committee. Need I say any more? The House Committee is probably one of the most important committees that the trustee board has, and we are blessed to have the deacons serve with us on that committee. Security Committee, Sister Elizabeth Bell and Trustee Al Divers co-chair that committee. Security Committee, Brother Clarence Hatcher chairs that committee. Procurement, we're doing some investigative work on how to better get items in the church, buy in bulk maybe, things of that nature. So Sister Kateria McCabe serves that committee. Communications, that's more or less an internal committee so that we know how to reach out to each other. And Sister Bonnie Bowser chairs that committee. Planning Committee, every now and then we might sit back and put our feet up. Or we host the trustees of the city of Philadelphia once a year. And they come here and fellowship, and we share and network how trustees work throughout the city. So Sister Wanda Pryor Jones chairs that, and please pray for her. She is at McGee Rehab, recovering, so please keep her in prayer. Historical Committee, and Sister Vivian Barrett is not here today, but we do our best to preserve the history of the trustee board ministry, and Sister Jana Davenport chairs that. And Personnel Committee, chaired by Sister Bonnie Bowser, handles the employment affairs of the church. Deacons as well serve on that committee. So we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, we're working for God, and it is quite rewarding. In your packets, you should have a handout that looks like this. And it is very similar to the handout from last year. I will go through, as I said, briefly. Page 2, you have the list of the 22 trustees who serve in the year 2014. We do have a new trustee I mentioned Thursday night, and his name is Joseph Reed IV. He's about a month old, or maybe 2 months. So in 18 years, he'll probably be installed as a trustee at Mount Carmel Baptist Church, but he is our newest trustee. His grandparents and his dad and mom aren't here, but please keep them in prayer. We are so excited. We've had weddings on the trustee board, but we haven't had a birth, so very exciting for us. On page 3, just a brief overview of your gift giving and the church envelopes and the source of money that comes into Mount Carmel through your gifts, through your tithes, through your offerings, and through fundraising activities put on by our guilds. And we have what we call church projects. I think every 5 years we really have a big church anniversary driven project, Lady Day every year. So there are examples of monies coming in. And on your church envelopes, there's 3 lines. So this page, on page 3, breaks down the funding, where those funds go when you put monies on those lines. Current expenses, they handle operating expenses such as utilities, salaries and wages, maintenance and repairs. So your day-to-day operating expenses. And number 2, missions and education, which is our charity fund. So that would be used for benevolent purposes. And capital expansion is number 3. Basically our mortgage, which is $12,800 and what, Sister Hay? $12,825 a month. I round up, so just keep in the back of your mind, $13,000 a month. A month, our mortgage. Mount Carmel, we thank you for your gifts, your tithes, and your offerings as you see, the money doesn't sit. We do have to use it. And I highlighted on, I thought the other night, there were 3 big projects that we were able to accomplish the last 2 years, being installation of a new air conditioner, which is big enough to cool Race Street. Now, we know we had some issues with it at first, but we got those resolved, and I believe it was working quite nicely in the summer of 2013. We had our audio ministry upgraded. It's now located in the balcony as opposed to the room off of the choir loft. And we installed new doors, new front doors, which are gorgeous. So all of that came because of your gifts to the church. And we have other projects to do, so keep them coming, keep them coming. I'm going to move on to page 4. You can read at your own leisure. I won't read every word, but it talks about the collection of money, and we really don't want you to take any money home when you're collecting it. If you have a trustee, as I mentioned, serving on your ministry, they are more than willing to take the money, get it from you, and will issue you a receipt. So you're not, trustees are bonded, so you don't want to take that money with you, because if something should happen, it's gone. So let's try to keep it on the church premises, and that's what this speaks to. We're here on Sundays. You can call up to the trustee room. We'll tell you how to get there. You can turn all monies into the trustee room. One thing you should be sure when you're turning money in, you should know how much you're giving to someone. Just don't take someone else's word. They'll sit there and count it with you. But when you're handing over monies, know what you're handing over. So at least you have a reference for what it should be that the trustee is counting for you. Particularly if you're collecting checks, turn those in as soon as possible. Don't hold on to them. Just get them in so that we can get them deposited. The disbursement of money, as I said, Brother Jeffrey Cruz, that's on page 5. Brother Jeffrey Cruz chairs our voucher committee, and the voucher schedule for 2014 is attached as well. And we appreciate your efforts in adhering to the schedule. And it's important because although a check will be cut or prepared by the church office, Mrs. Sims, the check has to be signed before it can be negotiated. So the best way to have that happen is to have your requests submitted into the voucher committee on the scheduled meeting date. That following Sundays, those checks are signed by the trustees, and then they're ready for distribution after that point. If checks are written in between voucher time, then it's a problem or a challenge, I'll say, of finding signers. And 4 of the 5 signers work. So that's a little bit of an issue. We get it done, and there are exceptions, so don't get me wrong. We get it done, there are exceptions, but it's just easiest if you follow the voucher committee because there's a flow. Okay, any questions on that? Well, I'll let you ask any questions as I finish. And page 6 talks about some important items to always keep in mind as you work in your ministries. Each group may keep up to $250 in cash. If you have more than $250, please deposit with the church. No group should maintain a separate bank account for the purpose of depositing and dispersing money. And trustee board ministry, we don't cash checks. We're not a bank. Unfortunately, we're not a bank. We're just the trustee board ministry of Mount Carmel Baptist Church. So if you have a check, you got to take it to your financial institution. Financial reports to the church are required quarterly before the church meeting. Sister Hayden will talk about that. If you as a president or you have financial members of your financial leaders of your ministry, keeping accurate records of monies coming in and going out of your group is important for reporting. Budgets, they're requested once a year. They help the budget committee plan for the ensuing year. There are notices in the bulletin about that as well. And this last one has to do with financial monies coming in that you may raise through a concert or whatever else might be. That money is used for the betterment of the church and not the betterment of yourself. So the trustees can't go out and have a bowling party in the name of Mount Carmel, and then we take ourselves out for an Easter brunch. That's pretty much an example of that. The monies for the bowling party were raised for Mount Carmel Baptist Church to use for whatever and not for our benefit. So any questions before I call Sister Hayden? That's pretty much my brief overview. Questions, questions, questions? Yes, Sister Deacon Jan Ganges. And you're speaking the voucher committee. Yes. There are exceptions to the schedule, and in the event of something like inclement weather, yes, we will try to meet at another time. Am I right, Brother Jeffrey Cruz? Because bills have to be paid. PICO doesn't care that it snowed. Our mortgage holder doesn't care that it snowed. So yes, we will try to schedule another meeting. Any questions? Any other questions, Sister Mary Nesmith? Yes.
You have in here, if you collect, say we have a meeting on Saturday and we collect money, you said if you have a trustee within your group or in the building, naturally give it to them.
Yes.
But then you have here, if a trustee is not present, then submit to the trustee on the next Sunday. What we supposed to do with that money?
Find a trustee to give the money to. Now, there's always exceptions to anything and every rule. What you may do is call me, and we'll make sure a trustee is there to meet you.
I didn't know if everybody else knew that.
Oh. Well, what she's saying is, if you have a meeting, regularly scheduled meeting, there's not a trustee that serves on your committee, feel free to call me. We will have a trustee meet you at your meeting if you're collecting money. Yes. You don't have your director? No, okay. 215-747-9165. Now that's home, but I'm never home, so I'm gonna give you my cell number. 215-815-8282 is my cell number. You'll have a better chance getting me by that number. Yes.
Has any thought been given to perhaps members being able to go to the website, say for instance with bad weather and whatever, the member can't get to church? Is there putting on the website where a person could pay their tithe through credit card or PayPal?
I should have you give my presentation because that's my closing remark. Yes. And so then when the nominating committee puts their appeal in the bulletin, you'll be submitting your name. Thank you very much. So anyway, one of the things the trustee board ministry will be looking into this year is online giving. As an option, certainly not as a replacement of our gift-giving envelopes, but as an option. As you know, since the first Sunday in January, we've been weather challenged. And we have another snowstorm facing us Monday, Sunday night and Monday. But anyway, we are going to look into providing that to our members. I've been asked about that several times by several members. So yes, we're going to look into an option of online giving so that if you're away or wherever you are, you can just click, use your mouse and pay your gifts, tithes, and offerings online. So hopefully you'll hear more about that later in the year. But yes, to answer your question, we are looking into that. Any other questions? Thank you. Oh, yes.
In your communication, situation, with communication, now we're getting,
Calling post.
calls,
Yes.
calling posts, thank you. What is the problem with the clarity on that? Because you can't hear what the message is. It's not real clear.
Right.
I thought it was my hearing at first because I'm old.
Right.
But then I found out there are some other people who are younger than me who could.
Yes, there's, as with anything, we're going through a learning process. So the last one that we had, I heard, was better than the one before. So, and I think it has, what I've been told, it has to do with the phone that is used. So it's more clarity with a landline as opposed to a mobile, using the mobile line. But yes, thank you for your comments, and we will work on that as we go forward. And the calling posts are basically for church-wide events. So if the Hospitality Guild is canceling their meeting on a Saturday, that's not what the calling post is for. Any other? Yes.
I said last night I really appreciated it. I love this step up, using the technology. But I know when I'm leaving a voice message on someone else's phone, I feel this urge to speak quickly because I'm afraid I'm going to get cut off or whatever to get to the end of the tape. But when you're on the calling post, it was so fast, the last one that I heard, that it was kind of, if anything, we need to learn to speak slower. Speak a little, ask the person to speak a little slower. If there is some, option to lengthen the time that we have for the message.
We are in a work in progress, and we are just glad we got to this point. So thank you for your comments. We will take them to our technology team and improve upon what we are doing. Any other questions? Thank you, Sister Hayden. Thank you, Bishop.
Good morning, saints. Bishop, how much time do I have? Oh, if only. If only. No, I got up early this morning to come here. I'm going to say a few words. Okay, you have two handouts, and I'm going to be going from one to the other and back again and whatever. So keep them both in front of you, please. We are now all under the same Constitution and bylaws. And for that reason, we want to all be on the same page financially in our reporting as the church. The church uses a calendar year. That means January 1 through December 31st. Heretofore, we have been reporting January to Auxiliary Day, and then from December of one year to November of the next year. But we are converting our financial reporting to a calendar year. So starting with this year, we will begin with December 2013, and end with December 2014. Next year, we'll start with January and end with December. I hope you all heard that. Okay. Even though Auxiliary Day is in November, your final reporting figure will be the end of December.
When it's time to make your report for Auxiliary Day, it will be as of then, but that will be just until a November figure, but your final figure will be December 31st, 2014. Now, regarding this issue, the assistant treasurer, who is not present right now, but is Kelly Stewart, Trustee Kelly Stewart. I'm sure some of you know her. If not by knowing her by a relationship, you know her by sight. She will be assisting your groups with converting to the calendar year if you should have a problem understanding how to do it. Your report for any period of time should agree with what the church's figure is, and she will help you reconcile that. We have quarterly meetings, and your report should be in for the quarterly meeting. Quarterly church meeting should be in by the time church meeting is held. Mrs. Sims was saying Thursday night, that you have until that day to bring it to the church, your report. Heretofore, there have been just a certain number of auxiliaries that were reporting, but now everybody's going to be reporting. Everybody who is financial, which means if you collect dues or anything like that, have fundraisers, any kind of financial transaction you do, you will be required to report quarterly to the church. If you don't have anything to report, you still report and put 0. And the assistant treasurer will be scrutinizing those reports each quarter. And she'll be in touch with you if there's something that she needs to mention to you about your report. So be mindful of the deadline for reporting quarterly or annual reports to the church. We'll try to get something in the bulletin to remind you that it's time for a church meeting and it's time for you to make your quarterly report. The next quarterly meeting is in March. No, it's not March yet, is it? Is it March? It's the 1st of March today. So we are in March. I believe the meeting is the 18th? 18th, and you're going to be reporting your transactions from October to December of 2013. That's what you will be reporting for a church meeting. If your financial officers are not present here today or weren't present on Thursday night, please share with them this information and these throwouts so that they'll be up to date on what's required. Any questions on any of that? Yes, Brother. Yes, there's a format, and that is, where is that? I think I made a note of that. Yes, it's on the throwout that says you and the assistant treasurer down under number 2. The last item, number 2, proper formatting of your report. The receipts should be listed first, and then the expenditures next. You start off with your beginning balance, which is the ending balance of the period before. You start with your beginning balance. Then you list your receipts. All money's coming into your group. You total that. Then you list all your expenditures, your disbursements, the monies that you spend. Total that. You subtract the total expenditures from the total receipts plus the starting balance, and you'll get your net gain or loss for that period. Question, Vivian? That's the money that we're talking about. That's money. Any money. Any money at all that crosses your hand that you turn into the church. Report. No, no. Some groups just have dues. Yeah, some do. And some, just like you said, you have your fundraising and whatever. Well, whatever it is. You have had fundraisings, haven't you?
We don't, whatever we, like for our retreats, what we do is, we charge according to the expenses, and
Right.
for our speakers and whatever.
Mhm.
We don't charge extra,
Okay. Well, you report that,
okay?
definitely. And that's a part of your budget, what you expect. I'm getting to that. Yes, yes, we need to see your budget. The assistant treasurer will also be helping you with that if you need help. But we're composing a list of all the auxiliaries and groups that are required to make the reporting. So you'll hear from her. You will hear from her. I saw a hand somewhere.
I might be going ahead of this, but you mentioned budget. Does each ministry auxiliary have a budget set up per the church, or you set your own budget up? You understand what I'm saying?
No.
Do we set our own budget up to say the minimum Carmel?
Yes.
What we would need for.
Yes, exactly. And it's what you, and you go by, it's not hard to do, because what you're gonna go by is what you did the year before. That's where you'll get your information. It's this historical type of information budget. If you ended up, like for instance, the Men of Mount Carmel, I'm sure you have dues.
Yeah.
Plus you have your Thanksgiving, let's say their Thanksgiving event. Let's say last year they brought in $5,000 from tickets, and you had dues of $100. I'm just throwing out a figure. So you would put that down as your expected receipts, and what you paid for the venue and the caterer and all that stuff will be part of your disbursements. And that's the way you set up your budget. So all you have to do is look at your, I'd say your last, no, you need, well, you just look at your year-to-date report at the end of the year, and you'll be able to come up with something. And budgets are generally due by the first week of September, because we get started in the last quarter of the year. The church budget committee meets, and we take in what you are anticipating and all that. I saw Mary Nesmith. Oh, I'm sorry. He hasn't finished, Mary.
No, what about when you have something that's a free will offering? So.
If you have a free will offering, you will list it as free will offering, and you will give an estimate of what you think will be in the free will offering. Mm-hmm. But you list everything that's got $1 to it. You list it. Reverend Julia. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Mary Nesmith is next. I am so sorry, Mary. Please forgive me.
I understand, I know about the, financial reports every quarter. Now, you're saying that, okay, in March, October to December is due.
Of last year. Mm-hmm.
Well, how come, what are you saying up here that we're gonna start with December 2013?
Okay, that is because in 2013, we were still on the schedule of everything ends at auxiliary day
Oh,
in November. So you would start with any transaction starting December would be part of your 2014 report. So, but this will be the last time that'll happen. In 2015, we're gonna start with January and end with December. Reverend Julia?
As you know, the health ministry has been sort of in flux, and now we're really putting our feet on the ground, which means we essentially missed the September opportunity to formulate and present a budget. And we're going to meet
You're asking me how you get it?
Will we? I mean, I understand, you know, you fill the papers, you fill out and all those things, but we're past the time to submit a budget.
Oh, yes. You're not, no need in you being concerned with the 2014 budget. The next budget you'll be concerned with will be 2015. 2015. Right. And in your instance, do you have any money coming in? Is there any grants or any donations? Okay.
But if I understand it, that part I get, if that were to happen, they would return the income, to the church. I understand, but presently that is.
Okay, but you will be having some expenditures. Okay, so you will have a budget. Everybody has a budget. 2015. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You submit. So what you'll have in your, and then you'll be making monthly reports. Everybody makes monthly reports, which are privy to your group. Your financial secretary should be, if you have one, your financial secretary should be responsible for collecting the monies, if they're present at the time, collecting the monies and keeping a record of it, and then they report that money to the treasurer of your group. And the treasurer is one that has the responsibility of reporting it to the church, making the deposit to the church. So you're going to be making monthly reports in your meetings. Not the monthly report. We only are interested in your quarterly reports. Only interested in your quarterly reports. And so for your reporting, you'll have nothing in the receipts unless somebody makes a donation, but you'll have disbursements. But that's the nature of your guild, your group. That's the nature of your group. Mm-hmm. Okay. Moving along. As you can see, number one, on you and the assistant treasurer will assist you in converting to the calendar year. And the assistant treasurer, number two, will be working with your financial secretaries and treasurers in filing your financial reports to church meetings. We have had a workshop. We had a financial workshop a couple of years ago. It was very well attended. And we may be doing that in the future because we all need some reminders. And besides that, sometimes the financial secretary and treasurers, they change. Most groups, I don't know how, I think have at least 2 years or 1 year term. And you may be getting a new one, and sometimes all of the information is not passed on like it should be. So we need to have reminders every now and then, so we may be getting a workshop together for that. Okay, and so we covered the reporting, the converting, the reporting quarterly. I have down here the ending balance should be the starting balance for the next reporting period. The proper formatting, we spoke on that. And number 3 is the budgeting. And number 4 is that the assistant treasurer will answer any questions that have to do with requisition forms or any of the forms that are financial nature that you find upstairs outside of the office that you should use if you need anything financially. Brother Slayton?
I just wanted to know, back on the budget, is there a suggested progressive percentage that groups should add on to their last year's figures for the upcoming budget?
No. Just go purely on what you did before, unless you know that you have something new coming up. Like if you have a new project, then you include that. But other than that, if just things is, normally, then you would use what you did last year. Actual, yeah. Which is an estimate, but you're going to be basing it on your actual from the year before. So no, there's nothing complicated, like adding on anything a percentage of increase or anything like that. No.
I would say that because, of course, cost increase,
Right.
things that you might do, projecting for that seems that might be good to at least know that.
Well, it's not going to be that much, in the long run. So I'd say just base it on what you did before. Brother Henry Knox. Yes.
So, through the course of,
It doesn't have to be your last question.
it will be.
Yes.
During the course of the years, the minimum outcome where we decided we wanted to do something, we sort of just passed the hat. And we got the money and we did what we needed to do. Is there accountability process for that?
No. And we should pass the hat more. I'm glad you mentioned that because that is a item that we have not discussed. If something should come up and you need to do a full-page ad for someone, and it's an organization, let's say, okay, for instance, the choir. If you want to do a full-page ad for the choir, you do not take that money out of your treasury. You pass the hat for that. Because if you take the money out of your treasury, we're just moving money around. And that's not beneficial. Pass the hat. We do it on trustee board all the time. We pass the hat for everything almost. All our ads and all we have paid out of our pocket. It's not coming out of our treasury. And that is the way it should be done. You understand that about just moving money around. It's just not productive. And another point I want to mention too, when you have events and you have vendors that you have to pay, please do not pay them out of your cash. Please do not pay them out of your cash. It's important that we have a record. There's a paper trail that you need to establish when you are transacting money. So you're required to make a requisition for the vendor. And then you report your money, and it'll be netted out in the church report. And that has been happening, that we know people have had events, we don't see the request to pay so-and-so. And we know they had so-and-so as a caterer or whatever. But please, we're trying to get away from cash because we don't want to provide the atmosphere or environment of temptation for anyone. So we don't want cash, sitting around. Please report it to the church, like the chair said, and we'll have a paper trail. We're writing checks for everything. There's no problem with us writing a check for $10, no problem at all. Any questions on that yet, Brother Oswald Roach?
It's not a question, just a clarification purpose.
Can you speak up, please?
For clarification purposes, at the beginning of the fiscal year, any net income or positive or negative is not carried over to the beginning of the next fiscal year.
That is correct. It's zeroed out. Zeroed out. There are very few instances where there's any carryover, and all that is understood. Everybody understand that? At the end of the reporting period? No, let's say at the beginning of the reporting period, January 1, 0, you're back to 0. Beg your pardon? For church, you should be. Now, let's hear Mary's, for instance.
Okay, when I do, okay,
Mm-hmm.
So when I report that in, for next quarter, that's not gonna be a zero, that's not gonna be, it's gonna be a minus, but it's not gonna be zeroed out.
Okay, let's say you ask for $1,000 in December for, for, let's say December 2013, you asked for $1,000 for something for 2014. That's what you're saying. Well, theoretically, it's a zero. January 1. Theoretically, it is zero. I mean, in your project, in your reporting your project to your group, you'll do it differently. You'll list that as an expenditure in 2014 when you make your presentation to your group for the project that was pertaining to. But for church purposes, you'll start out with zero. It's really not complicated. But case by case, like for instance what Mary is talking about and all, then we'll sit down. You know, there's no question too little or too big for us. We'll sit down with you and work it out case by case, and so that you'll understand for your particular circumstances. Okay.
I think one of the points is that if we get money or any auxiliary getting money,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have that, you have not made that money, the money has to be paid back. I mean, it has to be, credit out, but that's when you have your project, whenever you have your project, then it's taken from that. But as far as you saying now, when you start over, it is a zero.
For church reporting.
It is a zero.
Yes.
It balances out when the project is happening, when you have your project, and then you deduct that, then it comes back, and you don't owe anything.
Right. Mm-hmm. It'll work. Believe me, it'll work itself out. Did I see a hand over here?
So as opposed to ministries and groups being profit centers, they're treated as cost centers. So they balance out at the end of every period.
Yes. And we do encourage you to, do some fundraising if that's what your group is supposed to be doing, because we need every little bit we can get. We're not doing that well right now. If you come to church meeting, you'll find out, but you must come to church meeting. Please come to church meeting so you'll know what's going on, so that you can share with others what is going on. I mean, other members of the church. Because especially our lean time used to be just summertime. When people, on vacation, like Pastor used to say, pretending to be on vacation, and he would encourage people to catch up on their tithing and offerings, because summer's a lean time. But now, the way the weather is these days, the last year or so, winter is also. Those Sundays when you couldn't come out, we really did not get that much. But the bills keep on coming. The bills keep coming. And so when we're in touch with you and we ask you to find another day for your meeting, because we want to close the church on certain days, please understand and be cooperative, because we're doing it for a purpose. I mean, some churches are not open in the evenings on Saturday because they can't afford it. And Mount Carmel is like Grand Central Station. And people just feel that, but I mean, the lights, the gas, the guard, the custodian, it's money. And that's something that, in order for us, because we're driven by Sunday. We are driven by Sunday. All that we do and everything we're working for is for Sunday and for anything that we can do outreach for the community and whatever. So if we can't sit in here comfortably on Sunday and enjoy our air conditioning and heat and all the other things that come with it, then what are we doing? So just keep in mind that, and just have a sense of cooperation when we ask you to curb a few things. And like, when you leave, the last one to leave the room, please cut out the light. Please cut out the light. But you know, and it's not like you hear people say, well, you don't do that at home. When you're out, you do differently. But you don't have to worry about, you know, all that. But I'm saying be concerned about it because it's very real. We have ministries that we fund that don't do fundraising, but it's our charity arm. So when it, for instance, the college assistants, well, we have an envelope in the gift giving box now, and that's been working out pretty good. But for our young people and all, we want to assist them with their college tuition and all that. All that is purely out of our treasury. So we have a lot of projects that we fund that's not offset by any fundraising for that particular. So, you know, we need some new ideas, some fresh ideas that involve outreach too. But I mean, I'm not up here for that. That's not my, okay. We are anticipating, we're looking into online giving. Because I mean, there have been some Sundays when I couldn't make it. Because I had a not so good experience the second Sunday in December will stand out for me in infamy. It took me a long time to get home that day. So therefore, when it's inclement weather like a lot of snow, I'm sorry, Bishop, but anyway, a lot of snow, I'm not making the trip, but I come a long ways. And that, you know, and I was saying, oh, I wish I could just give, go online and give, because I needed to get that money out of my checkbook. You know, so, you know, we understand and we want to make that available to you. And so that'll be forthcoming at some point. Any questions? I think I've covered my issues and other issues. Well, I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your many questions. You know, I love questions. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I also want to thank Brother Henry. I have to take my wife to the airport. So try to do my part now. As you know, the deacons are to help support the pastor, help take care of the congregation. And are spiritually minded to do so because we made a commitment to God to do so. Some of the things that a deacon does is we serve communion, we participate in baptism, at prayer meetings, attend funerals, visit the sick. If no one shows up, we have to be ready to be part of worship service. We be with the families when they're in bereavement. We visit nursing homes. And also we deal with the auxiliaries. Now I said on Thursday night that a lot of times people try to put deacons in just the spiritual, say it's just the spiritual arm of the church. But everything about church is spiritual in our thinking. And that's why you'll see deacons picking up trash, taking out trash, shoveling snow, cleaning. And that's why we're part of different boards. We're in the boards with the trustees for a joint board where we make decisions for the church about things for acquisitions or money that we have to spend for things about the church. We own the House Committee. You heard Sister Hayes say that earlier. Part of the Budget Committee and Personnel Committee. But one thing I would like to say about, especially about the auxiliaries, and I'm saying this because of those members that become ill or end up in nursing homes. And we talked about the $250 that you can have for your bereavement. But your bereavement just shouldn't be about sending a card. It should be about visiting also. Because we find a lot of sometimes, and I don't know, I'm just gonna put this abroad, right, because I ain't gonna try to pick out any particular ministry. But we go sometimes to visit some members, and they say they never have anyone from their ministry come to see them. So what we would like to have this year, starting out, is that in your ministries, if someone is in your ministry or that you know someone that is sick, let the deacons know. Some of you are good at that. I know Sister Davis the other day, and Wanda Tuck told me about certain people. Sometimes people come to Noonday Bible Study, we talk about other people that are sick. But if you have people that you know, and also in your ministries, you should know or have a historian to find out if some of these members that are listed as in their nursing homes were used to be a part of your ministry. Because we change presidents a lot sometimes, and someone might be in a nursing home that are part of your ministry, and you don't find that out until the service comes. And they say in the announcement they were a part of a ministry. Because if they were part of your ministry, they should have some condolence or resolutions made for them, for their time of service that they had in your ministry. So that's one thing we want to try to work on, with the ministry so we can try to keep a handle on that. Because sometimes people die and the other family members take them somewhere and we don't find out about it. But if they knew someone was constantly keeping in touch with them, then maybe we don't have to find out a year later that they died in New York. And we still having them on the rolls and still making envelopes over for year after year. And then you wonder why all those envelopes stay up in the hallway. A lot of times because people either moved, died, or they're with family members that don't care about church. And even if you send the envelopes to their house, they'll just sit on the mantle. But we need to, it's a way to help, because we're all brothers and sisters in the church. So sometimes, sometimes I think the congregation thinks that it's all the deacon's job. The deacons do it, so let them do it. But these people may have labored long in your ministries, and they should be cared about, not only by the deacon, but by the ministry that they were part of. On the educational part of the deacon, we have new member classes. Some of us teach Sunday school. We're part of VBS, Vacation Bible School. And other things I found out in the position I'm holding now, you also need to know that the chairperson of the deacon board does do benevolence to a certain amount. And so those who want to be chairpersons, it's another job you have to do. A lot of things you have to be concerned about. And I like to say to those of us that are here is what I said to the deacon board the other night. We know we are in transition, and we all know who's on the search committees. So I told the deacons that they know who's on the search committee. So don't continue to ask them questions about what's going on. They're under a cover of confidentiality. So, let the process be the process, and don't bug them. Let them do what they have to do until they finish. We all may get a little antsy about how things are going, but let them finish what they have to finish, and so they don't have to look at you or turn away from you and not say anything to you, and you get mad at them because they're not telling you what they're doing. So it just gives them a freedom to do what they have to do without them being bothered until it's over. So I just want to put that out there. Yes, Brother Henry.
Do we, and I mean, the church have a policy on benevolence toward non-members?
When you mean for them to come to me and ask for money?
Yes.
I haven't had that come yet, and sometimes if it comes, I think a degree of the situation, and I think as a Christian church we would have to talk over that, and it depends on what they need and how much would also have to come into to play. Because if it's a need outside of our membership, we may have to talk about it in joint board or something. May have just like when we do things for the Red Cross, we may have to have a special offering for a certain predicament. A lot of those things right now, I won't particularly handle. I'm going to let the next pastor handle some of those things. I've told some people that I am keeping a book for things that come up that a lot of people think it's under my jurisdiction to change or start. And but there's a process for that too, because you find out in your Constitution, a lot of things the pastor can't do just on his own. So a lot of things takes for the church to do. But I hope that answered a little bit, because they can't just come to me and not being a member, and have to be taken in consideration, because there's sometimes, as I said when I first in church that Sunday, it's a lot of things that people may want to have done, but we may not be able to do it. Not that we don't care, but sometimes we just can't because of what goes on. Yes, Sister Paul. They should be. Yes, they have a list of everyone that's in the group. And I'm glad you brought that up, because there have been situations where a deacon has called certain people, but their family members have moved them. And as you see in the bulletin sometimes where it says that people should, if they have changed their address, let the church know. Because we have people that the only time they contact us is after the person died. The deacon had been trying to get in touch with them, and only thing they have on record is the phone number. Sometimes phone numbers change, and they never tell the church. The deacon only has the number that you left in the church for that last time. They call. And let me say this, because it was brought up, Jacqueline Kelly was sick. And she said the greatest thing that happened to her is that the people in her unit called her. Even as deacons, it would be nice sometimes for the members in our units to give us a call or a card or a hello every now and then. Everybody thinks it's always a one-way street. They talk about the deacon saying, I didn't get a call. But how many times you walked up to him and say, hey, how you doing? If we're going to become a true family and a true church, these are the kind of things we should start doing. Not always thinking that, and I said on Thursday night, just like the pastor, everybody thinks the pastor should start and do this and do that, but a pastor can make all the plans and the projects that he wants. And what happens most of the time, no one wants to come and do it. But then they blame the pastor because it's not happening. If you have ideas of things to be done, look within yourself first to think that you can do it, or find someone that you know that can. Then things can start moving. Because we always heard over 47 years, the pastor always said things don't happen by osmosis. Someone has to do it. Yes. And if they don't have one, then just let me know and we'll assign one to you. Okay. That's good. You ever send him a card? You send him a card and let him say, hey. Yes, Sister Whitman.
At one time, there was a board that listed all the deacons and how they had their groups, like, I don't know if it was alphabetically or how they did it, but each deacon was listed for who they were. And then they had a couple of meet your deacon days,
Yeah.
And I think I got spoiled when my dad was a deacon. I just took all the deacons as my deacon, and I just,
Yeah. We've been trying to have Meet Your Deacon mostly on our annual day. That board you're talking about, it was there originally for Meet Your Deacon Day, and it just never was moved again until it got so bad they had to throw it away because it was in the women's dressing room. Brother McKinney.
Well, this isn't a question, but there's one thing I can say, that when I was very ill and way down in the valley, my deacon showed up to give me communion that Sunday, and that was a great help. And that's something I will always be appreciative of.
Thank you. Yeah.
I know that you have deacons assigned to, each auxiliary and ministry. Has that changed? I mean, the schedule of.
No, some of them have changed, depending on because we had some deaths. So, and I have to say one thing about the deacons that are currently working. They have stepped up to take care of units and nursing homes of people who are sick, deacons that are sick and are not doing their duties now, and then those that have died. They have taken over extra responsibilities on themselves, so I'm very proud of them for just stepping up on that. And a lot of times I didn't have to ask them, they just volunteered to do that. Because we want to serve. So then that's what we're called to do. Yes.
I just want to publicly also say that a couple of years ago, it was 2008, when I had both my knees done, which meant I was away from Mount Carmel for some time, it warmed my heart so much that my deacon came when I was in McGee, and he came when I was at home to do my communion. I tear up just thinking about it, because every time he came, I cried. Because I love my church so much. And I also want to publicly thank the women's ministry because they sent out cards.
Yeah, I must say one thing I've come since the women's ministry has been formulated, that they have stepped up in a lot of areas. So, Sister Brew, your group will be very. Anything I asked her to be a part of, she has done that too. Thank you. Sister Newberry.
I've had a couple of the kids that live in my block, and when their mother was sick and subsequently died, I had to say to them, they said, well, how come the church didn't do this? The church. I said, the first thing is, the church does not take attendance, so they don't know that your mother's not there. So if you don't call the church and tell them that your mother's sick or whatever, they won't know. I mean, I think there's a whole lot of people. I mean, like I said, they don't take attendance.
Yeah.
So you don't know who's here or
Not-
who's not here. So if you don't call the church and tell them.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up also because there are a lot of sick members that deacons see that they know about that are not in the bulletin every Sunday, that they serve communion to that are not in the bulletin every Sunday, because they know they're sick and they have been told. And sometimes people call during the week and give Miss Sims another name that someone is sick now and they want to have communion. If we know, we do what we can, and under all circumstances. Because a lot of times, we hear the jokes, talk about we can't sing and everything else, but some of us can, but some. But when you're in need, we're there, and we don't hold it against you. Sister Verdell.
I think it should be emphasized that a member has the right to their own privacy. So if they don't want their names to be listed in the church bulletin that they're sick, then I think maybe the least that they could do is make sure the church office knows to contact their deacon. That's right. And it's important that the deacon knows so that the deacon can visit them or serve communion. But they don't have to have their names listed in the church bulletin, when they're sick. Because people are private. Some people are private about that. But just make sure the church knows, and so that the church can contact their deacon. You'd be surprised how many people don't know their deacon. So, but the church has a list of all the deacons and who the people that are assigned to be the deacons. So if the deacon knows, then we can act on whatever needs to be.
And also, every member doesn't like you to visit to them at their homes either. So, I said that to him when I first became a deacon. So when I was given my first list, I sent a letter to all my members that were in my unit, what their wish was. So I knew where not to go and where I could go. So. No, and I call them if I can, but most of them I see. Yeah, there's those who don't, I'll call you when I need you, and that's what they tell you. And most of the time when they need you is when someone else is calling for them because they're no longer here. Any other questions? Yes. Mm.
Leaders of ministries, when someone dies in your particular ministry, you write a letter of condolence. As I've observed quite a few funerals this year, and what we need to consider is the length of the letter of condolence. That my request, now this is me and I'm watching families, is that it's no longer than what's on the front of one page, including the letterhead. We can say how much we love you in those few words. As I watch family members, they don't hear any of it. And also, we need to consider the toll that it's taking, what they're already going through. Because I've also watched them struggle to walk up the aisle after the service because of all the emotions that that they've gone through throughout the service. So I'm asking if you would consider when you write a letter of condolence that it's not more than what's on one page, the front of, well, not the whole paragraph. We leave it with one paragraph, one page, but the front of the
Maybe Brother Bill was going to take care of that when he did his leadership booklet. Any more questions about the deacons? Thank you. Say a little prayer for my wife when she goes on a plane. She's in service for the church. Thank you.
Okay. Julia did mention that, but I was going to say to auxiliary leaders, please say to your corresponding secretaries or whomever, whoever the person is that writes those condolences, Pastor often says when he get up and to announce persons who are doing remarks that I am the principal eulogist. You don't have to eulogize the person in your condolence. So length is important. Okay. I went in the back and I wrote it on the board, and I don't feel like walking back there to get it. 2 Timothy 2:15, and most of us know it. If you know it, say it with me. Study. Oh, you don't know it. Okay, let's say it together. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I like it from the Amplified Bible, and I think even though we usually use it in the context of studying the Bible or whatever, but I think it's true of leaders also. And the Amplified Bible says, study and be eager to do your utmost to present yourself to God approved, a workman who has no cause to be ashamed, correctly analyzing and rightly handling and skillfully teaching the Word of God. And I just made a lie out of myself. I'm going to get it. I saw some of you trying to write it, so if you can read my writing, here it is. Can you read my writing? Okay. I have a real keen interest in leadership. I used to, before I joined Mount Carmel, I would visit West Oak Lane Church of God quite often, and Pastor Horace Shepherd would always say that fellowship is more than two fellows in a ship. And if I were going to kind of piggyback on that, I'd say leadership is more than two fellows in a ship. I think one of the hardest things in the church in particular, and maybe in general, is to get leaders to understand what they are and who they are. And in the church, it has almost like a dual responsibility. And I have it in the little booklet that you have, and I'm just going to scan this today. Our problem is, first of all, if it is a problem, understanding that leadership in the church, or the dilemma of the church, is that we are operating almost in two worlds. The church is an organism. And organisms get their sustenance from other sources or from another source. And the church has to understand that our source is in God. We exist for God. We are his agent on earth. We are his hands. You've probably seen it. God has no hands but yours, no eyes but yours, no feet but yours. And so we have to understand that we're organizing, or we're operating for God, first of all. And then secondly, there are some things that Yvonne talked about that the state requires of us. We're an organism, but we're also organization. There are some requirements that we have to have in order for us to function. There are only 2 biblical officers, and I got in trouble a couple of years ago with some of y'all because y'all want to tell me that there are more than 2 biblical organizations in Scripture, and I haven't found it. I know what you heard somebody else say, but I'm talking about what the Word of God says, and that is deacons and pastors are the 2 scriptural organizations that you'll find in Scripture. And so we operate because of God's declaration to Peter, really. I think for you Bible scholars, Matthew 16:18 is it? And I say also unto you that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And so we operate as an organism. It's a living thing. We call ourselves a family. And we use that language sometimes loosely, but we are family. We are brothers and sisters in Christ. And you don't always like all your brothers and sisters. My youngest brother and I fight all the time. He's in Baltimore. We can stay together about 2 days. And on the 3rd day, we're going to find something to argue about. But I love him dearly, desperately. So it doesn't mean that we always agree. But we are family. That is that organism piece. And then there's the organizational piece, that there are rules and guidelines that we follow as the Church of Jesus Christ. We remember always, and I tell my Bible study classes all the time, this is a 2-cent word, that we are a theocracy. We're not a democracy. We are a theocracy. God wants to rule us. He wants to be I almost said the HNIC, but I don't think he wants to be. But he wants to be the head person or he is the head person over the church. Sometimes we act like we want somebody else to be, but he is the head person in the church. And so we have this dilemma where we're operating because God has called us into being. But we're also operating because in 1882, some people got together and decided that they wanted to start a church in this area of the city. And in order to do that, there had to be some legal things that they had to cover. And so the church operates, again, almost like in 2 worlds. There's a dictionary definition that I gave you on page 2 of leadership, holding a position of leader. And I said Thursday night in closing that you can't lead where you're not going. You can't claim to be the leader and you send the other folk, y'all go on and I'm going to stay here. A leader is a person that holds the position of leader, having the capacity to lead. One of the things in the church, I think that has become much too common is that we elect people to positions who don't have the capacity to fulfill that leadership role. And, you know, they're nice people. They really are. And in the arena that they operate in on a daily basis, they may be the HNIC, but not in the church. In the church, they have to have the capacity to lead, to lift people up, to inspire people to action, and one who leads. That's leadership. To be able to get folk to do what they don't want to do, to go where they don't want to go. Calvin talked about deacons rising to the occasions. The leader has to let them know that I can do it. You know, I'm not sending you out there to do it. We're going. Go along with me or come on behind me. But we're going. We're going to get this job done. I I gave you some biblical models of leadership, and I'm kind of rushing through this so Sister Winfrey can have time for hers. Some biblical models of leadership. And I just, my eyes fell down on Moses. Who wants to tell me something about Moses as a leader? Reluctant? I heard another. I'm getting old. You got to yell at me, okay? Okay, he was old. He was old, like me. He was old. What else do you know about Moses?
Talk to God.
He what?
Talk.
He talked to God. He did talk to God. Moses got mad. God told him to speak to the rock. Moses said, these. And so leadership does not exempt you from being human. That's all I want to say. You know, there's the human side of me. Folk get on your nerves.
Amen. Amen.
You're pointing, oh, he's pointing to the mic. I thought he was pointing to you as well. Folk do get on your nerves. That's the human side of leadership. It does not exempt you from being human.
And also, as a leader, you have to learn how to confront the person with love.
Absolutely. You have to challenge people. Okay, let me get through. I won't go too far. But Moses came to mind to say to you that leaders are human. They're very human. They have likes and dislikes, and Calvin talked about people like to be told once in a while, I appreciate you. Amen. For those of you who are leaders, you know, try to get your people to understand that I am the leader, but I like for you to smile at me sometimes, you know. Don't look like you've been baptized in lemon juice. Give me a smile once in a while. Do something, you know, send the leader a card, tell them we appreciate. Montez Rhodes is a great person for sending out cards. I get cards, and I'm trying to figure out what she sent me this one for this time. But I do appreciate the fact that she takes the time to tell me that she appreciates some of the things that I do. Leaders have to learn how to delegate responsibilities. And I gave you a list of things there that you have to decide what needs to be done. And sometimes committees or small groups is the way to get it done. You have to do it, but you have to give them the idea that you trust them to do it. You don't want to micromanage. You don't want them running back to you every 15 minutes telling you, okay, we did A, B, and C. Is that okay for you? No, if I ask you to do it, I'm trusting you to get the job done. If the job is not, if people don't appreciate it, don't like it, or whatever, we can sit down, we can evaluate it later. But I'm trusting you to get it done. I think number 2 is key, and those of you who are leaders, I believe, need to, if you have a highlighter or a pen or something, prayerfully select the best person to get. I think the church is criminal with that. We choose people because we like them. I'm president of the Jumping Jubilee Choir because folk like me. I can't sing a lick, but they like me. So they elected me president. We have to prayerfully select people. I went to a PBA, Philadelphia Baptist Association meeting back last fall, I think, and I was challenged. I was convicted on this point that we just choose people on the basis of their credentials, their academic credentials, their job status, their whatever. We don't take the time to pray and ask the Lord to send us somebody that can get this job done the way you want it done when you want it done. I tried to say some of that in my message in the directory. That personally, I am satisfied that God is going to send us a pastor.
Amen. Amen.
I'm personally, I ain't gonna get out here and politic with y'all. I ain't going through all these hoops that y'all wanna jump through. God's gonna do the job.
He's already done it. He's already picked it.
Thank you.
All right.
Because you prayed about it, you asked him for it. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you. Prayerfully, select the best person to do the job. Be sure that it's clear what you are asking them to do. Oftentimes, people cannot complete a task because they're not really sure what you're asking them to do. Would you do this for me, please? And you tell them what it is, and they may ask you, is this what you're saying? And you say, well, you know, you understand. No, they don't understand. Be clear. I want A, B, C done, and I don't have to tell you how I want it done, but this is the outcome. The outcome is what's important. Establish a clear line and level of authority. Sometimes confusion is created when delegation is done. Do the job and do not report back. You don't have to keep coming back. Do the job and report back immediately. Do the job and report back routinely. Or investigate the job and make recommendations for the action that it was asked. They should always be clear as to what is to be done, and if there is a time frame, you have to give them the time that you want it done. I'd like this done. This is a 3 weeks project. Please try to complete this in 3 weeks. All persons involved should know what is to be done, what is to be reported, and what is the time frame. Leaders have to anticipate problems in advance. Others with whom the delegate is working should understand the delegate's authority and limitation. That's really key. I say this quite often, that just because you're the president doesn't mean that you are the leader. The leader is often someone sitting off in the corner with their hands folded. Sister Newberry has folded her hands over there in that corner. He think he know what he talking about. I know more than he do. When I first started teaching Bible study here, there was a lady, God bless her and God rest her soul, who said, how did he become the teacher of the noonday Bible study anyhow? I was teaching Bible in this church long before he got here. It is key. It is key that you have to understand your authority, where it begins and where it ends. They did not ask you to be the president. They asked you to chair the moonlight tea. That's all. And that's as far as you go. You don't go calling a meeting to take the president down. They have to understand that they consider the personalities, oh Lord, and past experiences of those to whom you delegate and those with whom they will work. Read that again, please, y'all. Please look at that. That is really, really key, because personality plays a big part in everything we do, even as Christians. Some of y'all try to act like you're God-breathed, but you're human, and your personalities will come to fore. Thursday night, I watched a certain person when I was talking, and they were just looking like, I wish he would sit down. It's almost time for us to go home, and he's still running his mouth. Personalities, and you know, body language often speaks louder than we do vocally. And I realize, I know this about Bill Henry, that my feelings show in my face. And normally, most of the time, when I'm in the public, I keep my head down. Someone said to me recently, I wish you would lift your head up when you're sitting in the pulpit. No, she didn't. She don't want that. My feelings show in my face, and people will know. You may say one thing, but your facial features and your actions may tell something differently. Evaluate at the end. Always have an evaluation meeting. What went right? What went wrong? What could have been shortened? What could have been lengthened? My adopted brother usually types most of my messages, and he tells me that my illustrations are too short. He said, you just hit it and you're gone. That's me, you know, that's my kind of thing. But I appreciate his evaluations. Learn to appreciate the fact that you need to sit down and discuss what you've done or what you want to do. Well, really, what you've done if it's an evaluation meeting. Some benefits and some handicaps is the pros of this approach is it gives people a sense of participation. If you want to kill something, you give folk the idea that they gotta do it your way, on your timeline, and the way you want it done. They must feel like they are part of it. One of the things that I do in teaching sessions is I usually begin my teaching sessions with I draw a circle on the board. And I write the title or the topic in the middle. Today would have been leadership. I would have put leadership in the middle of the circle and ask what comes to mind when you think of leadership. And I'll put it all on the board. It might be just as wrong as 2 left feet. But you appreciate people's participation. You don't always have to agree, but you at least let them know that they are part of this. We're in this thing together. It makes people aware of the many responsibilities of the leader. Leadership is rough. It is really rough. There are folk who, I said it earlier, who think they can do it better than you can. And sometimes they will tell you, and sometimes they won't. They will undermine what you're doing. They, you know, she thinks she knows everything or whatever. But it helps people to be aware that leadership has a lot of responsibilities. You don't just stand at the front and get all the accolades. You get the criticisms as well. And you have to learn how to take them. You know, everybody is not going to like you. You might as well learn that early in life. Everybody ain't gonna like you. And it's not about liking you. It's about getting a job done. It makes available other talents. It lets you know that there are other people who can do some things just as you do. It allows for others to gain experience and training. You ought to be training somebody. Everybody should have somebody as a vice or whatever you want to name them. Sometimes we said first vice president or second vice chairman or something, but this is a training experience for them. You nor I will be here always, and the Lord has not told us when. But he did tell us he was coming back to get us. And he might get you in the middle of your leadership piece. He may call you home. And you ain't going to take the work home with you. The work has to go on. So you're always training somebody to pick it up, you know. And then, I don't think too many of you in here today, but you know, you don't have to die in office. I've been president of this year club. I'll cite this one, for instance, in my former church, the nurses was complaining that she was saying she was the president because nobody else would take it. I've been trying so long for somebody else to take it and get somebody else to come in here and be the president. So the leader of the group that we were in said to her, give it up. Give it up. She gave it up and they flourished. They doubled in size. You know, we're not whatever we are for life. God does not call, and I've said many times that God does not call us to things always for life. It may be a one-shot deal. He might want you to hit it. Steve Long. Steve told me, and Steve said this to me shortly before he got sick. He said, man, if Pastor ain't around here when I die, I want you to do my service for me. Because you know how to hit it, get it, and quit it. And that may have to be your leadership. You may have to hit it, get it, and quit it. It is not necessarily a lifetime experience. The Lord may call you for a period of time, but if it starts dying on your watch, you better give it up, because it will die. It will die. And new leadership may come in and infuse some new energy into it, and it take off for life. It frees you, the leader, to deal with larger issues. You don't have to get involved in every little petty thing that comes along the way. You are the leader, but if I asked you to chair, what did I say the tea was? The moonlight tea. You know. Hit it, get it, and quit it. Don't expect that I'm going to come to you every time you something. I suggested you do this, and I suggested you do that. No, it frees you to deal with the bigger issues. The cons, the delegates, may assume they have more authority than they have, and I said that. The delegates may be overloaded. The delegates may not complete the task as well as you wanted it, but then you have an evaluation meeting, and you clear up some of those things in your meeting. I don't have mine with me. I don't know what I did with it. The booklet. Yeah, the little one. The leadership piece. And I have to do this, or else I won't be able to go back to the commission meeting anymore. I think it was last year. Yeah, last year we decided as the commission that perhaps part of the problem is that people don't know what they are supposed to do. And so we put a committee together to put together a leadership manual that we wanted to get into the hands of all of our leadership. And in this booklet, we tried to describe in the best language we had what your responsibilities are as leaders. And if you go to page 6, pages 1 through 5 is stuff you can read yourself. Page 6, roles and responsibilities. The president, the chairperson, the convener, the director, the coordinator, whatever you call yourself as the leader. These are your responsibilities. First of all, you must know proper parliamentary procedure. I went to a meeting, I've told this before, but I went to a meeting and someone made a motion, someone else seconded the motion, and that was the end of it. It was never carried. You have to know proper parliamentary procedure if you're going to lead. You have a general oversight of all of the work of the ministry. And even though I did say you delegate or whatever, you ought to know what's going on. Pastor Campbell used to always say, I only work here. No, it doesn't happen like that. If you are in charge, you are in charge. You get the credit and you get the blame. So you have to have an idea of everything that's going on in your group. You know and carry out the mission of the church as it relates to this particular ministry. What we did when we came up with mission statements was we asked each group, when you write your mission statement, please make sure that your mission statement connects to the church's mission statement. On First Sundays, I know the mission statement by heart, but right now I can't think of. The mission of Mount Carmel Baptist Church is to teach, preach, and interpret the gospel of Jesus Christ. Through the power of the Holy Spirit, we will strive to convert the lost, build up the body of Christ, and eradicate all misunderstanding. Okay, in order to accomplish this we must collectively strive to holistically meet. Some of y'all think you ain't supposed to do nothing but read a Bible verse. No, you're reaching to the whole man, to collectively strive to reach, to holistically meet the spiritual, physical, emotional, economic, and social. That's the church's mission statement. Now ask yourself, where do I fit into this? How do I help the church to do this? And this is what it's really all about. The smaller groups in the church help the church to carry out the church's mission. And so you don't just try to do all things. You try to be all things to all men. That is not possible. You have your mission statement that links into the church's mission statement, and then when we all get together, we have collectively striven to meet the needs of the people, not only in the church, but in the community as well. Attends quarterly church meeting. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand on that one. Is an ex officio member of all auxiliary guild subcommittees. You are a part as a leader. You can walk in on any meeting in that guild mission ministry that you want to. Somebody said, oh Lord, here comes the president. We got to stop talking now. No, keep talking. Even if you're talking about me, just keep on talking. Because I am a part of it. As the leader, you have the authority to go in on any of the subcommittees that may be established. You appoint and all standing committees and call for reports each month. And Yvonne talked about having a report each month. You ought to be having monthly meetings There are some groups that meet on Sundays, and I hope that's not your scapegoat for doing real, actual meetings. You ought to have a time where you meet and have actual, real discussion as to what is to be done, or what can we do, or what are we going to do. Not just to meet and collect dues and go home, but there ought to be some real discussion as to what are we really doing? What are we really all about? The vice president, the duties are spelled out there. The recording secretary, and Julia and I were talking in the back about recording secretaries, and she was coming up with a sketch as to how the recording secretary can record the minutes. And she was saying, you don't have to record everything that everybody says. No, you don't. You don't have to record everything, but be sure you record some things. And I cited to her, and there are some commission members here who will verify this. In our latest meeting, the secretary read the minutes, or we passed the minutes out to be read. And a member said, I didn't say that. Now, everybody else in the meeting heard the member say it. But the members say, I didn't say that. Minutes are important. You don't have to catch everything, but what you catch is what should reflect what went on in the meeting, so that persons who do not attend the meeting can be abreast of what's going on in the meeting. I like the procedure of mailing out minutes or emailing minutes. I think when people come to a meeting, they ought to know what already, when they get there, what went on in the last meeting. That's something to think about, you know. Send your minutes out ahead of time, so when the people get to the meeting, they will know what went on in the last meeting. Corresponding secretary. Y'all elect people who can't even write and call them the corresponding secretary. And nothing should go out from this church that is not, I want to say at least legible, but really somebody ought to check it, because it's going out under the name of the Mount Carmel Baptist Church. And it reflects on the church, not just on your little group. You may not want me to know it, you know. Y'all send out letters to folk that you want to know some things, and everybody doesn't have privy to it, but it reflects the Mount Carmel Baptist Church. And so your corresponding secretary should know that you don't put in a sentence, we seen that everybody was there. It ought to be legible. I ought to be able to read it, but it also should flow. It also should be proper subject and verb agreement. Sister Vivian. Now, right now, that is definitely true, because you don't have, you shouldn't have, if you got, shame on you, stationery, the latest stationery, and you should not be sending out letters with Reverend Dr. Albert Franklin Campbell, pastor, on the letter. There are legal ramifications to those kinds of things. We checked all of this out before we put that in the bulletin. And so you should have your letters sent through the office. Now, the office does not have a problem. If you give them a copy of the letter, they can either type your letter, or if your letter is typed already, they can look at it and see that it's okay. Calvin will certify it, ratify it, or whatever, and the office can send it out. Now, that's another area. There are groups that send out mailings and then send in a request to be paid for the stamps. The church has a stamp machine. And if mail goes out through the office, the church is paying for it. It's your church paying for it. And so to me, it would make sense to send mail through the church rather than going to the post office buying stamps. The corresponding secretary should know these things. The financial secretary, Yvonne, has touched on that. The financial secretary is really the person, is really the counter to the treasurer. They ought to balance. The treasurer, please don't elect me treasurer of anything. I can't keep up with my own money. So I don't play around with other people's money. But the treasurer has to be someone who can count and can keep records, and someone who will sign off on the requisitions. Now, Yvonne didn't mention requisitions, I don't think, but the requisition should have at least 2 signatures, right, Yvonne? Okay. 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 The chaplain, Reverend Bruton, has volunteered to meet with chaplains to help you to plan devotions. You should have planned devotions. You don't just sing a song, say a prayer, and let us go out and get some fresh air. You really should spend some time in your devotions. Crazy stuff happens in meetings because we haven't taken the time to ask the Lord to come and rule and reign in those meetings, to be the presiding officer. If I, the president, am wrong, Lord, shut me up. May I get this thing right so that the people that I lead follow me. Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. And so the leaders have the responsibility of understanding that you too you are really a follower. You don't strike out on your own, but you're going somewhere because the Lord is leading you, hopefully. That was my presentation. Quickly, questions, comments, criticisms. Jana has a criticism, y'all. Jana. Mm-hmm.
Number one piece really stuck in me was that you're the only one who knows how to do the
Yeah.
job. That's how a lot of, I think, our ministries die, because you kept all that knowledge to yourself. And so has it ever been institutionalized, I guess that's the word I'll use, that we have to train somebody else to do what we're
No, it hasn't. And in this church, up to this point, and I'm saying up to this point, the word required is a nasty word. I have recollections now. Jan, I think you were on the commission when we developed a leadership program for the church and brought it to the church. And it was thrown out because the word required was in it. Somehow we feel like, and I say to people all the time, I dislike the scapegoat that we use the language that we are volunteers. Volunteers sometimes give you the idea I can do it if I want to, and if I don't want to, I don't have to, because I'm volunteering. No, we are under some mandates, some rules and some regulations from Scripture as to how we operate. I think it's 2 Corinthians 4:2. Moreover, it is required in stewards, and that's not trustees, that a man be found faithful. And so up to this point, we have not had any requirements for leadership. But there really should be some. There really should be some training for people. Because, again, like you say, sometimes people have been president of a group or leader of a group for years. And the Lord calls them home, and all the records are in their house. I was secretary of the choir, Yvonne. Yeah, no. No, the Mount Carmel Baptist Church choir. And I painstakingly took notes on a yellow pad. And once after the meeting, I went home and transcribed those notes into a ledger. I went out and bought a ledger and put the minutes into that ledger. And the secretary that followed me, the Lord called her home suddenly in a car accident. And that was the last we saw of those records. And so that's how, stuff gets lost and nobody knows what's going on because it belongs to us. We keep it where we can guard over it. I'm sorry, Vivian? It should be passed down. There should be a collection of books in every organization in this church of records from previous secretaries in your group. Because that's where your history is. Unfortunately, we are in the 21st century, but we are still an oral people. We say it, but we don't put it in writing. And it really should be in writing. We should have a record of what we do, of what we say. I have been saying since I've been Minister of Christian Education that we need to write some stuff down. You really do. And again, even if I am secretary of a group, somebody should know where I keep those records. So if the Lord calls me home, and you won't be offending my family by going to them and saying to them, Brother Henry said to me that he had the records in the top drawer of the cedar chest or of the bureau or whatever, and we'd like to have those records. There are folk who carry, well, I'm leave that alone, but you have to be careful. You have to make sure that, this does not become your personal peace and leadership, that this does not become your personal pet peeve, that I'm the leader. And nobody else can know this but me because I'm the leader, because if they know it, they're as smart as I am. Yeah, it really happens that way, and it should not. Power, that's the word. Jana? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why I appreciate some of the people here at Mount Carmel who, when I was little, trained me how to make a phone call, how to take minutes in a meeting, how to pass a motion. So I've learned to use that at work in the other organizations that I'm responsible for. And so it starts with you looking out and seeing that there's somebody that you can help develop. And that's part of what our Christian obligation is too. It's not just to these four walls here. That seed that you plant, it has to grow. And it will grow outside of these walls because you recognize it and you nurture it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't probably emphasize the fact enough that just because you are the president does not mean that you're the leader. And if you're operating from the head, that I'm in charge, you're going to run into some trouble. There are some people out there who know as much as you do, or maybe more, who can help you. And then you ought to develop someone to come and take your place. I wish, one of the things I'm sorry we didn't do in our Constitution is put a time frame on leadership. Because we get in office and we stay there for life. And it becomes territorial. And that was the first word I used when I joined this church almost 25 years ago. Pastor Campbell asked me about my observation, and I said to him, I think we are much too territorial. And we've got to get away from that because we are family. We have to share. If something's working in your group and someone asks you about it, don't feel like they're going to steal your idea. No, share it so that they can come and help their ministry because you didn't get it yourself. You got it from somebody else. One of the things about Scripture, and I'm a Bible teacher no matter what, is that when Scripture was written, the writer would not put his name on the book. He'd give the credit to his teacher, to the person from whom he learned it. And so we've got to somehow adopt that posture as leaders to let folk know that it's not really all about me. It's really about him. I'm sorry, 2 questions. Yeah.
What I'm thinking, and it might not, it has to do with leadership, but I have just noticed so much so far as church etiquette goes. I mean, we need to be able to train these people that when somebody's reading the Bible, they shouldn't be walking up and down the aisle. That's right. Yeah, and children standing in the pews, and I don't know where you can go with it, but I
Okay.
would call it church etiquette.
Okay.
It really needs to be something done.
I think this is probably the third setting that this has come up in. The president of the ushers is here, and we're doing a seminar with them. We'll talk about church etiquette with them. It's a new day, y'all. You know, that's what we're really wrestling with. And people are coming from places that there was no etiquette. And they don't know.
Even in the discipleship class, maybe they need to, something needs to be said about it.
Yep. I don't know if you remember or not, but Reverend Flores came here last year, 2 years ago, I think it was, and preached a sermon from Isaiah 40. Have you not known, have you not heard? And he used that, and he said, no, they don't know. No, they haven't heard, because nobody told them. We're dropping the ball on the telling side. Pat?
I hear the word fear all the time in my head for them, for some leaders who are afraid to acknowledge some things that they don't know. Because if they do, then they fear that they will lose some of their power or their authority. And the fear is a great
Yeah.
thing to have people get taken away.
And I kind of started with that. Folk will appreciate you when they realize you're human, that you can make mistakes, that you don't know everything. You know, you're not the knowledge box. There's always something for us to learn. And so as leaders, we can't adopt that posture that, you know, I know it all, or I got all the answers. No, I don't. I say to Bible study sometime, I'll look that up. I'll look that, you know, try to find some information. Vivian, was your hand up? Okay. She's probably telling me to sit down. Ms. Bauer.
My mom had a really good thing to tell us all the time. You're never too green to grow.
Oh, okay. I like that. You're never too green to grow. God bless you. Sister Winfrey was the champion of our Constitution and Bylaws Committee. I didn't talk about her the other night. She came in and rescued us, basically. Sister Aisley Hayes passed, and she picked up the banner from there, and she took it not only as the recorder for the group, but she had information that we did not have. And you have a constitution today, much to Sister Gwendolyn Johnson Winfrey's credit. That's the word. Contribution.
Do people need, as Pastor would say, a seventh inning stretch? Do you need to stand up and stretch? Get some air into your lungs. Raise your arms. Thursday night, people had come from work, and I looked out, and everybody looked like they were either asleep or going to sleep. So Bishop said he's going to bring some water down for people who may need it. Lord have mercy. You leaving me?
Yeah, I got to. I'm gonna go see my aunt, take her belated birthday card. Love you.
That's not in your packet.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't tell him to